welcome to the Algeria British Business Council's Ambassadors Roundtable Webinar with His Excellency Aberrahmane Benguerrah, Algeria's Ambassador to the UK. This is part of our programme to link in new Algerian friends to a huge and as yet untapped market. I've been engaged with Algeria since we launched the ABBC nearly 17 years ago. Building bridges, giving practical on-the-ground support, that is our mission. In that time, I have seen enormous changes, all positive, especially in the growth of the private sector. New generation, new thinking, new ideas, energy, pushing the country forward. They are an unstoppable force, and that is very inspirational. 2 weeks ago, we partnered with Developing Markets Associates for an Algerian government-led webinar, setting out the agenda for 2021. The window of opportunity is undoubtedly there. And for that reason, I welcome a wide range of investor interest amidst a great variety of participant interests representing a diverse range of companies. This year, there has undoubtedly been a profound sense of change, a will to move forward, diversify the economy from hydrocarbons, and to be in a position to be an economic force. 2021, next year, will be the year to mark positive change. The new economic infrastructure is running, COVID will have been tackled, and the economy will have adapted to the new oil prices. To explain the Algerian dream, and more precisely how we'll get there, I will leave that to Monsieur l'Ambassadeur. But first, no Algeria UK event is complete without Prime Minister Boris Johnson's trade envoy opening our webinar, the Right Honourable Lord Risby of Haverhill. He has worked tirelessly for many years, working on bilateral government relations, and has become a regular visitor. He has met with all the previous prime ministers and ministers. The Algerian government know him very well, and they speak frankly and honestly, and thus are made the very best of relationships. We owe a huge amount to Lord Risby, who is a great continuo factor when British ambassadors change. It is therefore with great pleasure I invite Lord Risby to open the ABBC Ambassadorial Roundtable Webinar. Lord Risby.
Ladies and gentlemen, participants in this webinar, it gives me great pleasure to welcome everybody and particularly to thank the ABBC and particularly Lady Olga for her energy, her commitment and organizational skills. It is so good to have the excellent Algerian ambassador speaking and of course representatives of the business community. In Algeria, change is in the air. There are imminently important election processes taking place, and I for one believe in the rebirth of a new Algeria in 2021. You can feel it in the air. Business interest in the country is rising, not only by the British, but by many others. We have a genuine partnership, the two countries, and talks are underway to turn this into a more multifaceted strategic partnership. In the time that I have been the Prime Minister's trade envoy to Algeria, there has been a dramatic change in the way we support British companies which wish to export and invest abroad. We now have the capacity to finance this with UK export finance on a scale never seen before. Equally, Algeria knows that it cannot be dependent on the hydrocarbon sector and has legislated accordingly. The required former business partnership arrangement is now much more flexible and focused. The outreach of the National Agency for Investment Development, ANDI, is now impressive. Visit their website, call them up, and of course, our embassy team in Algiers is there to assist. And do not be inhibited by language issues. A British school will very soon be up and running. The desire to speak English is now simply enormous, as I saw for myself when I spoke to students at a university on my last visit. So the opportunities are there. The country reforming and modernizing its economy. Algeria equally, tell us how we can share that partnership and exchange our knowledge with you and take up the business opportunities there. And we are here to help support the future of Algeria, a country which I have personally come to regard as my second home. To all those participating today from business, I urge you to explore the potential in Algeria for successful commercial outcomes.
Lord Risby, thank you very much indeed. It's very evident you speak from your heart, but also for real insights into Algeria. I now turn to our key speaker of the webinar, His Excellency Aberrahmane Benguerrah. Mr. Benguerrah has had a very distinguished diplomatic career. He's served several times in the United States, in Washington and in New York, at the United Nations in New York. He's also been twice in London. He knows and understands us all very well indeed. He was formerly Ambassador to Senegal. He has also served in Algiers at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs as Director of Western European countries. And in this role, he certainly knows the complexities of Brexit, which is helpful in the light of our new post-Brexit partnership. He will give an overview of this extremely important year ahead of us, the year of transition, and it is something we anticipate with enormous pleasure. Therefore, I give a warm welcome to His Excellency, the Algerian Ambassador. Over to you, Mr. Ambassador.
I thank you, Lady Olga and Lord Risby, for your presentation and your kind words. I would like also to say hello to the participants and those who are present with us this afternoon. As you remember, more than 2 weeks ago, we organized a similar event dedicated to the Algerian British relations with the presence of the Algerian Minister of Industry and the British Minister of Investment. On that occasion, both ministers reiterated the commitment of their governments to further develop, reinforce, and diversify the economic relations between the two countries. We in Algeria, we strongly believe that British firms with their expertise, know-how, experience, and huge capacities worldwide, we know how to seize the numerous investment opportunities in Algeria, as have succeeded the 100 or 30 British companies operating in Algeria in sectors such as the oil and gas, pharmaceuticals, banking, and engineering. I believe that our two countries, already linked by a non-double taxation agreement, can do much more in terms of trade and investment, as the UK is about to leave the European Union, and as Algeria has embarked on a series of deep political, economic, social, and cultural reforms, even though it is confronted to a sharp fall of its oil and gas revenues and the formidable challenges posed by COVID-19. On the political front, and in order to reinforce state institutions, democracy, and civil liberties, which are essential conditions for an efficient economy and social justice, the Algerian government has proposed substantial amendments to the constitution, which is the country's fundamental law. These amendments will be submitted to the Algerian people in a referendum in 2 weeks. In the economic field, and to improve the business climate, the Algerian government introduced a new investment law which will simplify and clarify the investment procedures, reduce the bureaucracy, and provide more guarantees and more protection to investors. This new law makes no distinction between foreign and local investors. Furthermore, this law includes other tax incentives which will be measured on the basis of the added value of the project and its capacity to create jobs. Now, the question that we can ask is, what are the most important reforms that are in the process of implementation? Well, I can name a few of them, such the abrogation of the Rule 5149, restriction that requires Algerian majority ownership of new businesses in many sectors of the economy. This rule will however, remain in effect only in a very limited number of sectors called strategic sectors, identified as the hydrocarbons, mining, defense, railway, posts, airports, and pharmaceutical manufacturing. The other measure that the government has decided to do is the government decision to repeal what we call the state enterprises right of first refusal, transfer of foreign holdings to foreign shareholders. Exceptionally, this strategic sector mentioned above, we need only an authorization. Let's also mention that foreign companies have now the possibility of resorting to external financing and are no longer compelled to ask for local financing. Another important reform concerned the law, what we call the law of money and the credit, which is in effect since 1980, which means more than 30 years ago. This law will be amended with a view to guaranteeing the independence and the autonomy of the central bank in order for it to conduct an effective monetary policy with the implementation of foreign exchange laws and more flexible regulations in line with an open economy. Another law which has been introduced and it's in the process of being implemented is the law, the hydrocarbon law. This new law introduces several measures to encourage investment in the hydrocarbon sector. It introduces in particular a set of new tax measures which focus on stimulating the oil and gas sector and on a substantial reduction of the tax burden borne by companies operating in these sectors, while maintaining the Rule 5149 governing Sonatrach's partnerships with foreign companies. This law redefines the roles of the various national actors in the hydrocarbon sector. Hence, the Ministry of Energy, the Algerian Ministry of Energy, will only intervene in strategic decisions relating to energy policy. And the national company, Sonatrach, is simply an economic operator and not a regulator. The law establishes the three central contractual forms for the exploration and exploitation activities with the objective of allowing a more equitable and attractive distribution of profits to foreign partners and to give them the latitude to choose the contractual form most appropriate to the type of activity they wish to conduct. So oil companies, foreign oil companies, which like to intervene in Algeria and invest in Algeria, will have three types of contracts proposed to them: a participation contract, production sharing contract, and risk services contract. Finally, I would like to mention also, as part of the reforms that are being engaged by the Algerian government, the creation of a new fund dedicated to the financing of startups created largely by young entrepreneurs. This fund, based mainly on venture capital, that is financing without guarantees, permits projects leaders to avoid difficulties of obtaining loans from commercial banks. Thank you for listening. I will be glad to answer questions, hopefully not too technical or related to specific cases. Thank you very much.
Ambassador, thank you very much indeed. Before we move on, you've given us a really exciting menu of changes and reforms. Could you give me some kind of timetable as to when the investment law, the new hydrocarbon law, all these new reforms, when they will be live and active? Will it be in the spring?
I do not have the precise time, but they are already in the process of being implemented. So it's only, I think, with 2021, they will be starting to be implemented. Because, you know, these are very important laws that a lot of members of the international community were looking for, which welcome these new laws, and they will be implemented shortly in a matter of months. And some of them maybe have already implemented.
So in fact, basically, we're looking, all of us are really looking for 2021 to be the big push forward. It's very exciting.
Yes, yes.
Very, very exciting. So I think on that level, we'll just move now to the marketplace. And I'd like to introduce James Fielder, who is the CEO of HSBC Algeria. James has had 22 years working with HSBC, working in Asia, Europe, and in the MENA region, business line roles. He knows the market climate very well indeed, and will be speaking from experience from his time he has spent in Algeria. So, James, what is your key message to potential investors and partners?
Thank you very much, Lady Olga, and again, welcome to all of the participants. Thank you, Lord Risby, for those words, and Ambassador and Benguerrah. For us, HSBC has been in Algeria for about 12 years now. We're relatively small compared to where we are in some of the other countries, but our main objective here is to be supporting our international clients that are operating in Algeria. So I can share some of the experiences that they've had operating here. And I think for all of them that are operating here, they can say that they find a good climate, they find a good quality of staff, well-educated, young workforce, the language issues, although French still dominates, certainly in our case, we have plenty of English speakers, and we see that through other work we've done with charities where the youth here are all very fluent in English. So, but the companies that set up and actually implement, manufacturing on the ground, they're the ones who seem to be doing the best. There's a very big market domestically in Algeria, and some of them have also gone on to start exporting overseas, which of course is something that the government is very encouraging of. Some of the practical things mean that it's it can be more paper-based. It can be more onerous in certain steps that need to be taken, and we often get asked the question about if we make a profit, can we take our money out? And the answer is yes, and we do that for many of our customers. We help them repatriate their dividends each year through that process. There are certain key documents that are needed. The original SWIFT message for the money that originally came in when the company was set up is something that is critical to that process, and so we would certainly recommend anyone that is setting up to fully understand what is required, and those documents need to be kept. But I think overall, obviously this year has been a challenge. It's been a challenge globally. Everybody was impacted earlier in the year. Everybody's sales dropped sort of significantly. But I think depending on the industry, we've seen either a U shape or very much a V shape in different parts of the economy. So the retail sector has recovered very, very well, particularly those companies that have some online sales capability. And again, the payment systems here are not as advanced. People still use cash and checks significantly more than perhaps other countries, but companies have got around that by taking cash on delivery of the goods rather than, say, the payments online. And these things are available, of course, here, but it's just whether there's the take up of the with the Algerian people that are still have the cultural usage of cash. So I think for those who have set up earlier, particularly those who are manufacturing here, I think it's they very much view Algeria as a large market for them, and they are successful. With these changes that have been talked about by Ambassador and the general government announcements that are talking about changing in lots of different areas, I think we remain very positive for the future for Algeria, for new entrants that may be considering expanding. And of course, they have 200 odd countries to choose from, and Algeria needs to compete with that, you know, in terms of attracting FDI. But I think the country is on that route to change, and is taking some good steps to encourage that, and we welcome that.
Thank you, James, very, very much indeed. You raised one point, which I thought I might ask the ambassador, about mobile payments and electronic payments. I think mobile payments is definitely on your agenda. When will they be live? When can people make mobile payments in Algeria? I know it's very much on the agenda.
Yes,
Ambassador?
Oh, okay. Sorry, I thought that. Well, you know, high on the government's agenda is the digitalization of the economy, and the e-payment is particularly targeted. There was a plan that this digitalization and using of e-payment will be effective fully on a large scale next year. And because of, you know, it needs some investment, it needs some know-how, and it needs also the human resources to be implemented. So it's going to be maybe by the middle of next year. But there is definitely a need for us to digitalize the economy, especially the e-payment, for a very simple reason. You know, if today you want to buy some things in Algeria, you have to use paper money, and just because of coronavirus, you can get the virus just because of money. Hopefully, fortunately, in Algeria, we have one of the lowest coronaviruses in the world, but this is definitely, even without coronavirus, I think we are aware that we have some challenges. We have to go forward, and the decision has already been taken by the government to digitalize the economy, especially in the administrations, and also as a means to save a lot of money. Because, for instance, I give you an example, in the pharmaceutical industry, we found out just to manage the medication that we buy, just the fact that they are modernizing the pharmaceutical sector, they already, I think they get something like $90 million, because they can trace, because there is traceability, what's been bought, what's on the shelves in drugstores. So this is very important, and we are aware that we have a lot of things to catch up with.
Well, we're very excited about all your plans. I now would like to turn to Mathieu Beaucourt, who is a long-standing friend of the ABBC. He's partner and managing director of KPMG Algeria, which he joined in 2002 after 5 years practice in France. Mr. Beaucourt has served a long list of well-known brand names, ranging from Sonatrach to Orascom Construction, Société Générale, BNP Paris, and many others besides. He too has seen Algeria change, and he too will say it's been very profound, and he undoubtedly shares the sense of a new will to move forward and welcome new participants and investors. So from your friend, Mathieu, what do you see as imperative for an investor to understand? What challenges should he be prepared for?
Maybe I should talk about the 5149, as the ambassador said, and to say that on the ground you can make a company if you are a service or manufacturing company. As at today, you can make a 101% company with foreign equities. So it's quite a good news, because there was some application text, and as at today, over the last 2 months, we were in a position to set up some companies in manufacturing or in services, which are 100% foreign equities. So it's quite a big change. It is on the ground now. Maybe before moving to the specificities you should tackle as an investor, maybe I should talk about KPMG in Algeria and about our specificities, because we have a hub of 50 people working for Europe, So people who are working in deal advisory, it's 100% exports. And we are invoicing on a monthly basis 100,000 euros per month. And we have to recruit 100 more people by the next 2 years. And we are quite happy with it. We are tax exempted. We do not pay any tax, neither corporate tax, neither TAP, neither VAT for sure. And we are quite happy with the quality of the people. And also, we are quite happy with the devaluation of the dinars because we are even more competitive than we used to. You should know also that you have many startups who are under the radar. I don't know how to say it in English, but who are under the radar. There are 15 to 20 people, and they are only exporting services in Europe. So it's quite interesting also because it does participate of a new Algeria. As for any investors coming in Algeria, as James said, he should be aware that any entry of capital must be properly registered through the bank, through the notary, through the SWIFT, so that tomorrow he will not have any issues in repatriating. That's quite important for any investors, because any investor wants to repatriate. And if you meet the requirements, you will be in position to pay dividends. So it's quite important for any new investors. You should also know that you have very skilled people, young people, very, very well educated. And also as at today, and we hope it will change, the doing business in Algeria may be still complicated. So there will be, I guess so, an alignment and a kind of alignment of doing business with the new code of investments, so that we will attract a very good quality of projects, be it services, be it in industry. Okay, that's what I wanted to say about doing business in Algeria.
Well, I think there's no doubt about it. The one message that comes across is that Algeria is an enormous marketplace, which actually UK companies haven't really appreciated the opportunities and the space to provide services for. Ambassador, I just wondered whether you would like to give a general comment about welcoming companies into partnerships in Algeria. One thing that slightly comes to my mind, Algeria has experienced a squeeze on the dinar, which we can understand, which means that it's quite difficult to sell services at the moment into Algeria because of Algerians have to pay, which means valuable dinars leaving the country. How is the government going to open up on that? Because otherwise it looks a bit temporarily difficult.
Well, you know, Algeria, like, in fact, not just many countries, but all countries in the world are having some economic difficulties, to say the least. So Algeria has, of course, we have a squeeze, as you mentioned, with our foreign reserves, because Algeria depends a lot on revenues from hydrocarbons. We lost something like 60% of our real yearly revenues from oil and gas, and so that has an impact. So today the challenge for the government in Algeria is how it's like one of these operation research problems. You know, you have the objective to go as far as possible in terms of economic developments. And that's why we are witnessing through the reforms to attract not just the foreign investor, but even, and most importantly for us, the local investors, to encourage them. And at the same time, we have to, and that for the investor who are in Algeria, they need materials, they need equipment to import. So that costs a lot of money. In fact, last year, Algeria, we spent like $16.9 billion importing goods and services, not to count raw materials. So, and that's need a lot of money. And unfortunately, as I said, the revenues of our oil and gas has been diminished a lot. And we have our foreign reserve that we have to manage. And of course, that has an impact on the value of the dinars that has been going down. But, you know, finally, money is like any good and service. It goes up, it goes down. Now, the demand for, you know, for the foreign currency is a little bit high for importers, although, as you know, like the UK, like other European countries, economic activity and international trade is a little bit down, but we are doing the possible so that to respect the large number of companies in Algeria who are looking, of course, for money to do business. We cannot satisfy 100%, but I think a large majority of entrepreneurs in Algeria are are succeeding in getting by, not maybe with 100% of activities, but I think the fact that not many of them are out of business, of course they are a number, but compared, we have like 2 million small and middle enterprises. Many of them are having difficulties because of money, who depends on imports. But I think in the general picture is that Algeria is rather doing well, as have said some your speakers, and we hope we can do much better with less corona. Maybe we hope we can get rid of it, and with the economy of the world catching up, then things will, I think, will just change, and we'll go for the better.
So do you see in 21, next year, let's say by the middle of next year, that it'll be easier for supply chain services and goods to be sent into Algeria? Because I think UK companies are quite interested in partnering with an enterprise which is already producing goods but needs a boost of investment to really be able to export, which is what Algeria would like to do. Do you see by next summer that we will probably have a greater fluidity on that?
Lady Olga, if today you have someone who can predict the future, then he should be in Las Vegas, because that's where you get money. It's really impossible to today predict what tomorrow will be. I am talking about the next 24 hours, right, let alone, you know, speaking about 6 months ago. But what's most important? What's the most important? What are the fundamentals of the Algerian policy? Is that the government that we have today had done some openings, some reforms that have been a long time in the pipe, because now that he has the decision is now you decide today and it's implemented tomorrow. That's what's the most important. Now concerning the case that you mentioned about some people who want to import, as I said, you know, this is a question, technical questions, a question of supply and demand. And now the government is in the process, as I said, in the process of amending an executive decree that is about 15 years old. This new decree will set procedures for import of raw materials and the products and goods intended for resale without transformation. This new text aims to fight the spread of offenses such as overbilling, the rental of trade registers, and the non-localization of importers. These new decrees require the importers, because there is some obligations on the part of the importers, is to obtain what we call a certificate of specialization and to subscribe to specification, what you call un cahier de charge. Right. I think we are, as I said, in the middle of many reforms, and one of the reforms is concerning the import, the one I just mentioned, which is about 15 years old. It was the time when the price of oil was $150,000, $150 a barrel. Now it's much, much less. Then we have to adapt our rules and laws to the reality as it is today.
Ambassador, I think that was an enormously helpful reply, because we have a wide range of investors looking at this webinar, and this is the kind of news they really want to hear. I was wondering if we could turn to another sector, because you now have the Minister for Mining, and mining now has become very much up on your agenda for development. Could you perhaps tell us a little bit about their plans, about expansion, and also how foreign companies can engage and support the mining sector? Because it's
Yes.
always felt an enormous secret, wonderful story you've got to tell on this,
Yes.
and now is the time.
Well, you know, when you talk about Algeria, you know, when you travel to Algeria, and I think Lord Risby has been there 20 times, is that when you visit Algeria today, you come back in 1 year, you see changes, physical changes when you are driving. It's either you took the highway that is 1,200 kilometers, 6 lines from the borders from Morocco to Tunisia with international standards, and because of reform. So when we say implement reforms in Algeria, that does not mean that we are in the desert of Gobi. We are already very much a country that is well developed, at least in terms of infrastructures, in terms of educations, in terms of the index of human development. We are #1 in Africa for electrification. Do you know that Algeria, when you travel from Algiers to Tamanrasset, which is thousands of kilometers away, all people in Algeria have electricity. 99.8% of Algerians have electricity. So the investment of the government has been tremendous since independence, because nothing, you know, if you get independence, political one, but economically that has to be shared by the people and the wealth of the country. Now we found out, not only we found out, it was already on the pipe, that Algeria, as you know, it's the 9th largest country in the world. It's the largest in Africa, in the Mediterranean, in the Arab world. So, and we have tremendous reserves of minerals. Some of them are very important to many industries. And we are, the government is working on a new reform, a new law on mining. I don't know the exact details, but I know what the purpose of it is: to develop the reserves. I think the first one that they are thinking about is phosphates, because phosphate is part of the, you know, is used in agriculture. And we have two huge reserves in the east and in the west. The one in the east is about $7 billion. It's a wholly integrated project that is to move the phosphate from a place in the wilaya of Tebessa to the port of Annaba, which is about a few hundred kilometers. So you have to construct the train, you have to construct the transportations, the exploitations, and it goes right to the port. Many of it will be exported, and many of it will be used in agriculture. And we have also another mining projects in the southern west of Algeria. It's a huge one. It's also worth billions of dollars. So these are all projects that are very capital intensive. And we hope that with the improvement of our economies and finances, that we can go forward as soon as possible.
Well, this is a tremendously encouraging piece of news. I'm just really wondering whether, James Fielder, you would like to make a general comment about the push for all the reform, because the changes you have seen over time, and comment on the ambassador's reflections on the different sectors his government are really working on. James?
Yes, thank you. So, I mean, I think pharmaceutical sector is a good example. They have done well throughout this period. There are a lot of local producers as well, but that's one sector that we see as continuing, you know, continuing to do well and probably open for investment. I mean, we're now with the change in the 4951 rule earlier this year, with the exception of certain strategic sectors, and all countries will have those their own strategic sectors, but with the exception of those, you know, it's really carte blanche for people to come in and invest, either with partnerships at a different percentage split, or indeed, you know, just coming in on their own. But I'm encouraged to see, and I think Ambassador, you know, alluded to it, is that there's been talk of change for many years. I've been here for 2.5 years, so a relatively short period, but there's been talk of change for many years. But this year we are actually seeing that change. The announcements are being made across different sectors, across different areas of the law, to encourage that new investment. And it's very early days, and it doesn't change overnight. But I think you know, the current president has set that scene, and we are seeing the change. And I think, notwithstanding COVID, that there are other challenges for the country. Obviously, the depletion in foreign currency reserves is one that everybody talks about. But at the same time, you know, Algeria is a country that has very little, basically zero foreign debt. So actually, when you look at their reserves to the foreign debt, they're actually in pretty good shape compared to many other countries. So change will take time, but I think we're starting to see the seeds of those change. We're here mainly as a corporate bank, and as I said at the beginning, mainly for those international corporates. We're a network market within HSBC, so we're here to support our clients that come in. But of course, we also deal with some Algerian names, and so I think that the timing is good, but it's not plain sailing, and sometimes the regulations come out without a huge amount of pre-discussion, and sometimes they're not that clear, and so, you know, we need to go back and get clarity on that. But at least that's the downside. The good side is that when they come out and they're effective today, or, you know, so we get that change a bit quicker than you might see in other countries, certainly that I've worked in the past.
Thank you, James. I'd like to turn to Mathieu Beaucourt, KPMG. Matthew, do you feel, as a follow-on on the comments by James, you're seeing this momentum? Matthew?
Yeah, we can feel it. If we look behind, if we look ahead, maybe we can say the following: the fiesta is over. I mean, over the last 10 years, 15 years, the companies made huge profits. Maybe the profit was too much important if you compare to the gross product of the country. As at today, it's quite clear that it's going to be more complicated. We will have to be much more innovative. We will have to add much more value in Algeria. But I feel that since there is a normalization of the performance of the companies, at the same time, I can feel that there is a normalization of the doing business in Algeria, which is quite a good news, because you have so much positive energy, good energy. I guess it will be quite short in services company, because you do not need huge infrastructure, and you can do very good by 1, 2 to 3 years. Maybe it will take more time for manufacturing, because the ecosystem has to be rebuilt. But when I'm talking with Algerian deciders for any investment, if you bring technology, if you add value in the country, you will be helped, you will be assisted. It will be much easier than it used to be. If you come for a poor quality project, or if you come from resale, you can stay in UK or wherever. So I would say there will be a normalization, and I can feel that there is a normalization of the doing business in Algeria. As I told you, 5 months ago, you were not in a position to set up a 100% company in manufacturing or in services. even if there was some application text. As of today, you can do it. So it took a few months, but you can do it, and you can come in Algeria and make a 100% equities company. So my feeling is that the new Algeria is not only a slogan, we can feel it on the ground.
Thank you. That's really helpful. Ambassador, I wonder whether we might turn to another sector, technology related, the renewables. And I know that Algerian government is very committed to renewable energy, and particularly to solar energy. When can we expect the promised solar energy tenders? When will they be published? And indeed, who would be eligible to participate? There's a lot of talent here in England and they'd love to be engaged, but I think it's a wonderful way forward. It's the modern way forward. Perhaps you could give us a little bit of insight.
Well, you know, Algeria has been embarked on these reforms that one of the main purpose is not only to develop the economies, but it's to diversify our economy. And when we speak about energy, we also want to diversify our sources of energy, not only the non-renewable, but the renewable. We are already having many projects in Algeria as far as solar energy. You have companies in Algeria who built equipment for this industry. But the thing is, and we were speaking before the start of this conference, is that we have so much potential. You know, we have the largest desert in the world. And there was a talk some years ago to have an investment of $500 billion invested in the Algerian desert Sahara. With some German companies at that time. It was, and the output will be channeled to Europe, but because of the problems that we are suffered, as you know, with the fall of price and all the situations. So we will definitely not invest 500 billion, but we will invest a lot of money and a lot of efforts to develop these sectors. And there are some talks, not only internally, but externally with some operators, foreign and local. And there are emerging some small and middle industries who can work on the production of some equipment. But the thing is that this technology is evolving by the day. So what you can produce today will be useless or less economical in 2-3 years. So we have to make sure to invest on the best technology and on the best materials that are part of this equipment. I can tell you this is one of the priorities of the government, because we cannot rely always on oil and gas because that needs a lot of consumption. It's not good for the environment. Although we have the 4th largest reserve in the world for what I call the schist gas, but still many people in Algeria, especially the people from the Green Party, and we have a lot of people who are in favor of this development, not only of solar energy, but also non-renewable energies. And we hope that some British companies can jump in and participate in these projects that will be set in Algeria, hopefully in the next years, maybe in the middle of next year. Although there are many projects that are in the process and they are working, and there are some plants that are already there in the desert in the south of Algeria. But these are projects that are huge, that need time, that need money, and that needs to be followed practically every day, because I said this technology is evolving by the day. But it's definitely a road that we are taking. We are already in that road.
But it has been announced that there are going to be some solar energy tenders.
Yes.
Do you know when they're going to be published?
I hope, I do not know the date exactly, but because, you know, we have, at this end of the years, we have this constitution elections, we have general elections before December 31st. I doubt it that it will be published in the next 2 months, but I am very optimistic that it will be in the first quarter of next year.
See, there you are. 2021 is going to be an amazing year. I'm going to turn to Lord Risby a moment, because one of the great sectors in the UK we're strong on is in technology, and we're very keen to make available our technology to Algeria. Now, this is a subject very dear to Lord Risby's heart, and I'm just wondering, Lord Risby, if you'd just like to say a couple of minutes on that.
Well, Olga, on my last visit to Algeria, I had a particularly memorable meeting which was organized by Barry Lowe, our ambassador, a deputy minister whose responsibility was to encourage and develop the technology sector. And I met a group of the most dynamic young individuals who had set up businesses in Algeria who are actually promoting this. And they were deeply impressive and they were successful. Now, from our point of view, I think it's fair to say, in all immodesty, that the UK has done an extraordinary job in actually embracing technology. There are 4 technology hubs in the world, 2 in the United States, 1 in Cambridge and 1 at London. And of course, Tech City, amongst others, has opened itself to the world for young people who are interested in exploring this and learning about it, to come to London to learn more about its application. And of course, fintech in the City of London, and we've heard about the evolution of banking practices that are in train in Algeria, is something which of course is world beating in terms of other countries. But the simple truth is that the divide today and for the rest of many years to come is between those countries that can embrace technology and those who cannot. And the Algerian government has focused now on tech startups. But what I also wanted to say, we are very anxious to work further with our Algerian friends to share our success story, but it cannot fulfill maximum potential without an appropriate tax and regulatory regime. Now, we have been engaged in discussions with our Algerian friends. We want to share our experience in exactly these regards and to actually use this as an opportunity to further these discussions. Because as the ambassador so correctly said, this is a country in the process of digitalization. We really want to participate in this. The spirit is certainly willing, and practice in Algeria. We want to develop it with our Algerian friends, and we believe that we have the capacity to do this and that it will be very well received in Algeria.
Thank you, Lord Risby. Ambassador, perhaps you might like to say a word or two about the general approach to new technology. You have already mentioned it in different ways, digitalization, but when the ABBC held 2 cybersecurity conferences in Algiers at the CIC, this wonderful conference center, we certainly were very aware of the growing consciousness about having to embrace new technology. Actually, I get a feeling that Algeria is going to leap a generation, because you've never been held back with old technology in terms of the sphere. And I just really wondered whether you'd like to say a word or two about how you're going to drive forward on this amazing young talent.
Thank you very much. You know, as an Algerian, I can say that Algerian people are very smart people, and they speak many languages. They have the facility to learn languages and technologies, and Algerians are particularly smart in computer engineering, and for this reason the government is creating practically a ministry devoted to startups and new technologies. So it's in the mind of the government that the future is about technology, and especially the digital ones, and it's not if, it's only when we will put all the investment that are needed, because there are so many things that these high-tech technologies can make life easier. But at the same time, in Algeria, we made sometimes the mistake that we are going to do something, but we have done many things. Today in Algeria, you can go from Algiers to Tamarasset, or from Tlemcen to Annaba, which are thousands of kilometers away, and you can be connected, and you can have your driver's license done right away. You can have your passport right away. You can do your national ID done right away, because everything is digitalized. We have our community here in London. When they go to the consulate, he asks, and in 2 minutes or 3 minutes, he has all the documents, because everything is connected in a network. And so we have already done many things, but we have the ambition that to have our high-tech technologies to be at the same level as the Europeans. And if you look at and we want also at the same time to associate our diaspora. Just for in the UK, we have something like 200 or 3 Algerian PhDs working in universities in Oxford, in Cambridge, and other universities. So these all people are also contributing to the development of Algeria, and we are very optimistic that we can go very far because it's essential. And in this area, since Lord Risby spoke very rightly, the UK can do a lot of things. I am the ambassador of Algeria, but I am also the ambassador of the UK when I go to Algeria, because I defend the notoriety and the expertise of British companies in many fields. And I believe that high-tech and fintech and modernization of the finance and banking, I think the British firms and they have definitely a high authority, and I always work hard to establish and to encourage relations between our operators and British firms.
So as we're now coming to a close, would you like to have a final message to leave all our lovely supporters?
You wanted to say a closing remarks? Or?
Yes, would you like to, we're about to close.
Okay.
I was wondering if you'd like to have a final sentence about your hopes for 2021, which will be a great year.
Okay, thank you very much. I would like to express my great pleasure meeting with the business communities of our two countries, and I really appreciated the debate we had today. In my point of view, we can retain some from this webinar roundtable, some points that could be as follows. The new economic growth vision of the Algerian authorities based on structural reforms, aiming at creating economic model based on sustainability, freedom of investment, entrepreneurship. This vision considers foreign investment, hopefully, and that's what we encourage, British investment as central to its effort to modernize the industrial base and other economic structures of the economy, and to encourage the transfer of know-how and technology. And maybe this is a point that we didn't talk about, the African dimensions. In the few next years, maybe starting next year, we will have African free trade zone. Algeria is part of it. And we see as an opportunity for British firms working with Algerian firms toward the African market in a triangular operations. And Algeria is, as you know, we have the infrastructure is already done. We have a highway that goes from Algiers to Lagos in Nigeria. We have fiber optics from Algiers to Lagos. We have a gas pipeline going from Algeria to Nigeria. So the infrastructure is there, and we as Algerians and British, we can work together for this market. And maybe we can also say that the two governments have the same objectives to promote and diversify the relations. There is a commitment, at least from the two governments, to go forward and encourage business and businessmen from the two countries. And I think this is what we can retain from this. And I would like to, I cannot finish without thanking you, Mrs. Olga and Lord Risby, for the fantastic initiatives that you continue taking to bring Algerian and British business together. I would like also to reaffirm that the embassy, our modest embassy in London, remains available to help and assist companies and businessmen, British ones who are interested in investment and trade and joint ventures in Algeria. We have a very dynamic trade counselor at our embassy. Please feel free to contact us, as we are available at any time. And finally, I would like to reiterate my warmest thanks to the organizer of this meeting and all our participants for their time. Thank you.
Ambassador, thank you very much for your wonderful remarks. Lord Risby, one final sentence, because you're the father of us all.
Well, what a champion you are, because you're so open, Ambassador, and frank. But I just thought that what came out of it was the way you described how the dynamic of the country is changing. But of our two speakers, James and Mathieu, I just want to pick up a line that James said. He talked about seeing the change. It was now a carte blanche. That's exactly what he was saying. And of course, Mathieu said that we are now seeing normalization of doing business. I remember in America seeing a slogan once for something or other, which says, try it, you'll like it. And I think that is the message for British investors in Algeria. Thank you so much, Olga, for organizing this splendid event.
Well, thank you all very much indeed. Thank you, Ambassador. You're a real friend to us all. Your embassy, I know, and you in particular, are very welcoming. We appreciate our friendship. And I'd like to say thank you to all our participants. The ABBC is there to help you. We give practical support on the ground, but we can only do it with our very friends in Algeria. Thank you all very, very much indeed. Until next time, thank you.